Friends, today's NRI Samai program from Los Angeles brought to you commercial free by listeners like you. Your generous donations make possible for us to stay commercial free, and today's show is pre-recorded. If you have a question for the guest, please send an email to nrisamai@gmail.com. We will follow up with the guest and find the answer for you. Thank you for your support.
My name is Goldy M, and basically I'm a Dalit activist. I also work on Adivasi issues. I'm a consistent contributor to some journals, particularly academic journals. I also hold a PhD, a doctorate degree from the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. I've been working for the last 27 years on multiple issues, more specifically focused on Dalit issues in Chhattisgarh, in central India, and at large in the pan-Indian context. I'm also part of several campaigns connected with Dalits, connected with the question of land rights of Dalits, the question of commons, the question of human rights, the question of how resource politics have been impacting the whole country, particularly the Dalits and Adivasis in central India.
So your main area of functioning had been central India?
Yeah, more specifically in Chhattisgarh and Odisha, Madhya Pradesh, this zone.
Okay, wonderful. And I thank you on behalf of NRI Samay, which is a web-based radio, to spare time for this interview. And I would like to begin with a small understanding for myself and for our listeners. How change of government in India from Congress-led UPA government to BJP-led NDA government has changed things for Dalits in this country?
You could see that there are a lot of differences. First of all, let me start from here. The Congress government were not the saviors of Dalits for any reason. The idea of Congress has been always to appease and to, in some way or other, dilute the dissent that Dalits have had all these ages after independence. So when you look at the UPA government, the UPA 1 particularly, they brought in certain new acts and laws. For example, the NREGA, which was one of those. The FRA is very critical in that sense, where they actually dismissed the space of Dalits completely, where the targets were more Adivasis than Dalits. And we have been actually battling, even before the bringing up of FRA, we've been battling, you also need to acknowledge the fact that there is a large section of scheduled castes and ex-untouchable groups who live in the forest fringes and who have been very much dependent and who have been consistently in interaction with the forest resources and all. But that wasn't ever heard by the policy makers and the ones who actually built the act. Now there is a campaign which we have already began to raise the question of land rights of Dalits within FRA. That's a specific campaign which we began last year in 2015. That's a national level campaign.
Let me interrupt you for a brief moment.
Sir.
Do you really mean to say that Forest Rights Act, it doesn't affect just tribals and the number of Dalits are also affected?
Yes. See, if you look at the statistics, the population data, you would see that in the forest-based zones, if there is around 60 to 70% of Adivasi population, there is definitely 15 to 20% of Dalit population also in all these areas. And there is a coexistence. As a student of cultural studies, as a student of anthropology and ethnography, which was also part of my PhD thesis, I could easily say that these communities have been coexisting for ages unknown. The cultural patterns are same. The relationship with the forest, the relationship with land, the relationship with water, the streams, the mountains is as similar as for the Dalits as it is for the Adivasi people. So this connection wasn't actually acknowledged. So instead of acknowledging these interconnects, What the UPA government was more concerned was to drag and draw more, Adivasi people, and also looking it as a part of their vote bank politics, because they were losing out from most of the Adivasi zones. In most of the Adivasi areas, it was the BJP coming up over the last 1 decade or more. So that was one of the tactics whereby they wanted to ensure that the Adivasi votes are not getting away from their banks.
But wasn't there a similar situation with the Dalit votes also?
In some areas, yes, not in the entire country as such. See, there is a difference between Adivasi population and Dalit population. Adivasi population across this country are very concentrated in pockets, whereas Dalit population is everywhere in small percentile. So they do not make up to a percentage which could become the elective force, but they become the decisive force. So in elections, Dalits are the decisive force. But on the other end, in Adivasi pockets, Adivasis become the elective force. They are not the decisive force. Yeah. So for those reasons, it was essential that they bring in a particular act whereby they ensure that these vote banks are not do not get disturbed and distributed to other parties and all. So this was one of the specific reasons why FRA only focused more on Adivasis, whereas other communities like the Dalits or the scheduled caste, which is the official term that we use in India, the scheduled caste and the other backward communities, they were put on as in a different conglomerative term, which they call it as the other forest dwellers. Yeah. So the other forest dwellers were undefined completely. So and other forest dwellers, the claims, if you look at the claims, the number of claims of other forest dwellers hasn't been addressed in most of the areas. I mean, actually, there are unwritten circulars from the administrative part that anything which is not from an Adivasi group need not be entertained at all. So that won't be even discussed in that committee which is supposed to sanction.
Do we have a situation in hand where Dalits living in and around the forest areas where Adivasis are given forest land rights, Dalits are not getting?
Oh, many. Across this country, in Chhattisgarh. In Chhattisgarh, there are over 120,000 applications which were rejected in the last 4 years. I mean, minus the 2015 data. This is actually being brought out by the Khaka committee. So, these applicants were mostly Dalits, number one. Second, there were over 80,000 applications of community forest rights, like the common rights. That was also rejected. So what has happened, see, the idea of Adivasi rule and self-rule and Adivasi access to land rights is basically not that of individual right. Yeah. If you look at the community, whether it's Dalits or Adivasi, they always believed in commons. And that idea was basically to bring in the spirit of common, right over, the community right over resources, whether it's land or forest or water or whatever. That has been dismissed in the FRA. So what I am trying to place before you is that when you look at the larger context, though NREGS came as a flagship of the UPA, but NREGS actually, if you look at the current context, particularly in some states like Kerala and all, so now what is? They began with construction work in the village. They began with digging ponds. Yeah. They began with making roads, repairing roads. Then they went into supporting the Adivasi and Dalits in terms of improvising their land. Yeah. Not in all states. Chhattisgarh did not do that, but some states did that. Now what has happened? There has been a saturation. See, by 2012, there was a state of saturation. Now, what is NREGS doing in some states? For example, the states like Kerala. Kerala is a state where Dalits are now working on the upper caste land under the NREGS. Now, look at the way the caste system functions. So, in a way, I would also theorize as an academician, as a social scientist, I would theorize that NREGS is also the reinvention of caste after a certain stage, where Dalits have to work again as a labor on the land of the dominant caste, particularly those Dalits who are landless.
Let me understand it a bit more clearly. Do you mean to say that Dalits have land, but they are working on land of upper caste? Dalits have land there.
I'm saying that there's a limitation to NREGS project.
Yeah.
Digging ponds, construction of roads or digging wells have a limitation. That saturation is gone now. The secondary stage was when those who had some small pieces of land, including Dalits and Adivasis, were supported to develop the agricultural land.
Yeah.
That is also over.
Yeah.
Now it's a tertiary stage where, so now Dalits mostly do not have land, except in some small pockets across this country. Dalits generally do not have a big piece of land. So in states like Kerala, example, in states like Kerala and in states like Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, where Dalits are completely landless, sizable number of Dalits are landless. Now there, in those states, these people, the Dalit communities, are basically working on the dominant caste land. Now that they are paid under the NREGS. What they have to do, the dominant castes have to place an application with the panchayat that I need this much days of work and kindly provide. So part of it will be paid by the one who are hiring.
But then this scheme was basically to provide employment.
This scheme was to provide employment.
That is being done. The outcome and productivity of this labor and this scheme and payment by the government is benefiting the upper caste people because they have the land holding. But the employment part is being done properly because these people are getting employment and they don't have land. So their cultivated land cannot be improved unless they have it.
Sunil ji, let me place it in this format. How do I look at caste? I will theorize it in a very simple way. Caste as a system has always dismissed two core aspects of human existence. One is human labor. It has always dismissed that. Second is human wisdom. Human, what you call it as vivek, buddhi. It has completely dismissed these two aspects. Now when you look at caste as a system, it has four aspects also, apart from, this is the first part I said. Now the second part is that caste as a system has got four main aspects. A, it is basically a system which is meant to capture wealth. It's a capture of wealth, taking over the entire idea of wealth itself. So in modern terms we can use resources. So it's like capture of resources. That's the first thing. B, it is a division of labor and laborers.
Yeah.
And C, it is a distribution. It decides the distribution of benefits. Who would be benefited to what extent and what not extent is decided by the caste. Yeah. And D, it is a system which appropriates the surplus. So surplus appropriation. Yeah. So these four are the core elements of caste as a system. So these are the ones which builds the system of hierarchy, endogamy, like multiple aspects of caste. Now when you look at caste in the current context, when you look at NREGS critically brings in these four core aspects. Yeah. And now when I said that the third stage of NREGS, which MG NREGS, which I took the examples from these three states. There are studies. There are researchers have been doing concrete research on how NREGS is reinventing the caste system. Yeah. So this is now one of the latest the findings from below. So the question that UPA, the Congress-led UPA, always tried to neutralize by throwing up small pieces of lobs for the Dalits and even Adivasis for that reason to come and like it's like the water tap in a slum. There is one water tap and there are 1,000 people living there, and everybody needs 5 buckets of water, and then this pipe would run for an hour and there is a fight, there is a battle, there is a whole kind of warlike situation. So in a similar way, UPA always tried to neutralize it and present it as a flagship. So in no way UPA or the Congress were the saviors of Dalits. They only threw some small pieces of loaves before them. Now when you come to the second part of the BJP-led NDA government, now what has happened is that the mechanics of neutralization is gone. There is no neutralization. Now it is direct confrontation. It is direct confrontation. You will see, like for example, it is the state now deciding what one has to eat and what one should not eat. You cannot eat beef because the government says that it is mandatory to be banned. So the Maharashtra government banned beef. So Chhattisgarh had already banned beef. Actually, there is a problem, technical problem. Chhattisgarh, people say like Chhattisgarh has got the beef ban law. Madhya Pradesh had the beef ban law from long. It's a wrong interpretation. Madhya Pradesh had banned the cow flesh. It did not ban bull, ox, buffalo. But when the Congress government came, the first government of Chhattisgarh, they were the one to add this bull, buffalo, everything. I think the water buffalo is still out of that, because in Maharashtra also Devendra Fadnavis hasn't put water buffalo into. So now the beef which you get in the hotels and restaurants in Maharashtra is basically the water buffalo. Telangana did not ban for strategic reasons, because there is around 40% of Muslim population, around 25% of Dalit population, and around 15% of Adivasi population. All of them are beef eaters, and they announce and pronounce openly that we all eat beef. So could you? I'll just come to the point. That my point is that now beef eating has been one of the critical issues where there is a direct confrontation, not only between Muslims. Let me be very consciously, I'm making a statement. It is not a question of only Muslims. It has been projected that it's only the Muslims, the Islamists who eat beef. I can tell you very honestly, at least 60% of Indian population eat beef or had tasted beef, whether they like it or not. So you go to Kerala, you will see like all Brahmins eat beef. If not Brahmins, maybe not the Nambudiri and Patar, but these Nayars and Menons and all, they all eat beef very easily. They openly say like, okay, I'm a beef eater. So, now this is the first thing. You decide that what is. Second, what are the fundamental questions that a nation is faced with? You need to understand that as a nation, there is the biggest problem that this country is currently facing with is that of the resource management question. Who owes the resources? Now there are so much of different types of factories, different types of corporates coming into India, and particularly if you look at the last 2 years, Ambani and Adani, these are the two big groups which is getting the complete support from the Modi government in corporate sense. And they're trying to divert multiple rules, laws, acts, everything. There was a serious attempt to divert the land acquisition a year ago, which somehow could not happen. There was a serious attempt, there is still a serious attempt to divert the coal block rules, despite the interruption from the Supreme Court.
Is there a difference between UPA government and NDA government in supporting corporates led by upper caste people?
Yes, this is what exactly I am trying to say. Now the difference is, it is not that NDA is supporting all corporates. NDA has been attacking Jindals. NDA is so it's select. So those Congress-based corporates are also on target for some reasons. But now they are looking at not just corporates, but they are also looking at saffronization of corporates. So there is a saffronization of corporates which is happening very, very strictly. Not essentially like all corporates are saffronized corporates. Some of them are Videshi outside corporates. So they have a JV, they have this joint venture with some local company. So what I'm saying is there is a new phenomena where capitalism as a as an economic system is easily aligning with fascism, which is a socio-political and religious system.
But tell me one thing, don't you think corporates had always been aligning with the color of the day, the flag of the day? Whoever was ruling the country, they were aligning with that. If it was a tricolor party flag, they became tricolor. If it is a one color party flag, they became one color. Is there a difference in corporate culture? Aren't they all remain same all the time?
See, corporates do, like for example, they have certain common cultures, but they also have certain uncommon cultures. If you look at, like for example, some corporates are very employment friendly. Some corporates are very employment friendly. Some corporates would throw away the employees if they voice or raise anything, against the institution, against the company. So there are certain, in terms of if you look at the idea of capturing the market or converting groups as consumers, then they have a common culture, then they have a common practice. But if you look at certain other patterns of, for example, like as I said, the employment, friendliness, or for example, like how they support the elections, so they have a different pattern. So, like, it is a known fact that all corporates fund the elections in this country.
But Goldy, coming back to the Dalit issue and Dalit aspect of the discussion, I do not want to dilute it by incorporating all aspects of the issue. Coming back to the Dalit concern, Dalit issue, do you find any difference in NDA and UPA?
There are differences.
Other than beef, which
yes. There are differences. For example, at least during the UPA, you had little space to dissent. You had little space to look at things critically. For example, the Dalit students and the faculties in academics, for example, you had the space to be more critical about the state, because see, after all, academic is a space where you are not actually taking things as it is given. You are critically looking at various patterns and procedures. Now, let us look at in the last almost 2 years what has happened. The Ambedkar Periyar Study Circle of IIT, that was banned all of a sudden. Why was it banned? It was banned for being critical about the Modi's governance, being critical about the past of Modi, bringing into light what happened in Godhra in 2002. So discussing things in a critical framework was allowed in the previous.
Friends, if you liked today's show, please go to youtube.com/NRI Samay and click on the subscribe button. You will get notified every time we publish a new show. And you can also like us on our social media sites like Facebook, Twitter, and Google+.